So we're going to go ahead and get started. There's still a little room for those of you still coming in. Go ahead and find a place to sit.
That was for the radio audience.
So this morning we're going to do a little panel, as you can tell, on a topic we call Tips for Faculty Success from Department Chairs, some case studies. And really what this is about is that we found that over folks' academic careers, there are some pretty predictable things that will come up, some kind of challenges that they'll face, and they're pretty common. Many people experience them. And so we put together this panel of expert chairs from the AACEM Executive Committee to just try to share their thoughts and insights about how you manage some of this. Hopefully we'll have some good discussion. We'd love to have your questions and interaction on this as well, because it'll make it much more, hopefully, helpful and much more fun. So before we get started, why don't we just real quickly introduce who's who?
I'm Ted Delbridge. I'm the chair of the Department of Emergency Medicine at East Carolina University.
Mike Brown, chair at Michigan State College of Human Medicine.
Deb Dirks from UT Southwestern in Dallas.
I'm Peter Sokolove. I work at UCSF out in San Francisco.
I'm Rich Zane from the University of Colorado.
Andy Nugent from the University of Iowa.
All right, so now you know who we are. Why don't we get into the first discussion? So, Ted, you want to kick this off?
Intro or
What's that?
I guess you've kind of done that,
Yeah, let's just go on.
yeah. All right.
Do I need the microphone in my face? No. Okay, we're good? Okay, just for recording. So what we're going to do, by the way, in case this isn't terribly obvious, please be informal, interrupt. This can be more of a dialogue than it is a monologue, so don't be shy about that. What we thought we would do is present to you 3 different scenarios to sort of get the ball rolling. And so the first one goes like this. Dr. Johnson is an associate professor and core faculty member. He has served as the associate residency director for 7 years, but is now feeling burned out in his current role, tired of doing it. While he really enjoys teaching, he's ready for a different challenge. Dr. Johnson doesn't want to hurt the training program and worries that his chair will feel he is abandoning the trainees. So some questions. We'll start with Mike. What should Dr. Johnson tell his chair? What should the chair ask Dr. Johnson? How should Dr. Johnson determine what role he should pursue next? And what type of leadership options are available to clinical educators?
So, yeah, and this scenario is actually based on a real, situation, probably like Peter was saying, not uncommon. So, what do you think? What are the first things that pop into your head that you would be asking yourself and the chair? Have any thoughts on that? Let me just throw it out. Yeah, go ahead.
I'd start by trying to create an environment where Dr. Johnson would feel comfortable, full transparency to his chair, including saying that he's nervous about going to the chair because he doesn't want to do things. And putting that out there is really a great way to start that conversation. And then as push comes back to the development of my environment, what do you find rewarding that you still enjoy doing? And I always find the stressing when your environment is doesn't change every year. We should write them every year. Really helps this faculty member and all faculty members have a direction with their company. It's a new direction. They wrote
Those are great points. So I think, making the environment, like the chair, hopefully, in our role, makes a comfortable environment for people to feel that they can come forward and non-threatening. So that's our job. I think you're exactly right. Hopefully you, through conferences like this, have sort of thought about your personal career goals try to review them. I try to review them every 6 months or so if possible, but think about, okay, what are my 2-year goals, 5-year goals, long-term? Those are excellent thoughts. I think in this situation, did what you were saying is, well, what is it about your current job you still enjoy, and what is it you don't like? And then we took a step back and said, well, a few years ago, you seemed, really excited about this, and this was the career trajectory you thought you wanted to be involved and engaged in, is education. And he had dabbled in research, but found that wasn't his thing. So any other thoughts at this point, like how you would would you tell this individual, or you as the individual, would you think, well, let's find the joy in being an associate program director and push on? It's one approach. Other thoughts? Yeah.
I'm curious to know if he was frustrated or bored or whatever the word was because he wanted to be the program director and was hired to be number two, in which case there are many options, or he just realized education is not his cup of tea and he wants to do something else.
I think that's a really good question, figuring out the motivation behind it. I mean, I honestly just living this. My APD is becoming our ultrasound fellow this year, and so talk about having to have all those discussions, trying to figure out why, like you mentioned, why she wanted to change. Was it, she didn't like the job? Was it she just wanted to try something different? But then I think the next point to make that decision is to go through all the hard discussions that go with it. Like, okay, you're an APD, that has protected time, right? So if you're not an APD and you have protected time, that probably goes away. So what is the true experience of actually making a change and making sure they understand that it's not just a title change, but there are some other things that go with that, and how you can adapt to that, which is really hard.
Yeah, sir.
If their goal is to be a program director, I relate to this because 7.5 years ago, I was an APD behind a very career program director, and I just ran out of opportunity to grow and create myself. And sometimes I might be in a conversation with saying that you may thrive better at an opportunity outside of my shop. And I do think these conversations probably are several conversations. Was this important goals? I want to think about that.
I think just to add on to that, this issue that Deb really honed in on very well, this issue of trying to figure out what the motivation is really the key to solving this, because it gives you all of the different branch points. And sometimes folks just need they just need a little more support on something, right? So maybe it's, well, I love being the associate program director, but I don't like this part of it, I've been doing whatever, the conference scheduling for the last however many years, or I've been doing whatever, the annual evaluation, whatever that portion of it is. And then so maybe the opportunity is to even stay in the role, but just like switch duties in some ways about some little portion of what those things are. So I think just really exploring what the motivation is really important. Is it a work-life, family-life balance thing about the job overall? Is it the issue of I can't advance? So there's a lot to explore in those conversations. But I think that the first comment about creating an open space to be able to have that conversation really honestly is quite important.
Yeah, so Peter brings up a point. Over the years, and this is more of a program director job, I think, but over the years, I think people that get into education are typically very curious people, like to learn new things themselves. And so we frequently, over the years with our core faculty, would do a job swap, like basically, hey, we'd find out so-and-so's a little tired, fatigued of taking care of the interns or whatever, and the program, and so maybe the procedural skills post, they do a swap, and we do that frequently, and that really gives them an opportunity to grow in a new way. So that's one option. Now, I'll just wrap up with this scenario, but what actually ended up happening, this is where a chair's perspective might be helpful, because I saw he really loved teaching and mentoring. He didn't like the admin side of being an assistant program director. And so I said, well, have you thought about moving over to the medical school side? And our medical school was just undergoing a major curriculum change, and there were some, speaking of protected time, some positions that had a 0.3 FTE and really heavily engaged in mentoring a small group of first-year students. It's kind of a learning society, they called it, and it was a new thing, exciting, and that's what he needed. He had a very quick mind, but he became bored of things after doing them for a while. So this gave him a totally new opportunity. He basically moved from GME to undergraduate medical education and is thriving and loves it. So that was kind of how we solved that scenario. But it was through some deep thought on what does he like and not like about the previous role and other opportunities. So
That's great. Sounds like a happy ending.
it was a happy ending.
That's always good.
So I would look at it from a maybe a different perspective. I would be worried if after 7 years someone who is an associate program director wasn't a little anxious to do something else or something different. And an associate program director is not a destination position. So hopefully this is not the first time this person is having this conversation with their chair or their mentor or the program director or their vice chair for education. And there would be a career trajectory that somehow they'd thought about, and it wouldn't be all of a sudden on Monday, it's been 7 years and I'm burned out and I need something different on Tuesday. So the approach is really to think about what the next year looks like and the next few years looks like and what the destination is, knowing that an APD job or a clerkship director job is not a destination in academic medicine.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I mean, I think that that part of my job is to understand where faculty members think they're going. Because if we each should, I think, define success for ourselves individually. I mean, success is a very personal kind of thing, and how you define your career trajectory or not is really all about you. And so it's my job to understand that about the faculty members I work with. And it's also their job to help me understand that. And so I have those conversations with people with some degree of regularity. I sort of expect to hear from people when we do annual evaluations and things like that, but sort of where they see themselves going, or what it is I can do for them. My job, I think, is to open doors that they want to have open. And sometimes they need help identifying where those doors are. And like Mike said, I mean, I have a perspective about what happens in the medical school and hospital that they might just not have from where they sit. But that dialogue is important. And what's really important is not to wait until you're, Dr. Johnson, in this particular case, it would have been a bummer if this was some revelation that happened on a Tuesday, and Wednesday the dude wants to quit his job. That's hard to facilitate. But if it's an ongoing conversation about where it is you think you want to go and what options exist, and somebody's helping you identify where those options are, and it's sort of a continuous kind of process, that's like way easier. And that sort of dialogue is really quality stuff, if you ask me, because it really helps both the chair or whomever and the faculty member really understand each other. And the more that is true, then when really traumatic stuff happens, and it will, because that's the nature of what we do, when something's really urgent, it takes away a lot of the emotions of it all and makes it really just sort of a matter of just a different tack on the conversation that's happening all the time anyway.
I just want to throw a little bit of an extra twist on that, because I like the comment out here, but when people are blocked, there's a right way and a wrong way to have that conversation with the chair. And I've had both conversations with people. One came up and said, give me the new job or I'm leaving. I said, see ya. And, I think you need to have those conversations about, like you were talking about, where you want your career to go. And even if it's not in your location, the chair can help you facilitate to that next job, if that's what you really want to do. And I think that's the kind of communication that needs to happen between the chairs and the faculty.
Further questions or comments about this case before we move on to our next one? Yeah.
Along the lines of what you were saying, can you give some examples of the faculty members that have broached those difficult topics really well, and kind of what their approach has been?
So,
give an example of how not. But.
I think the ones that broach it really well, every time I have the conversation with them, either in the annual review or just in the hallway, I say, hey, this is where I want my career to go. And so I would like to be, I'll pick on Nick, vice chair of research. So Nick is my vice chair. He's sitting out in the audience, so that's easy. But we've known this for a long time. We've been added to this, but he never, ever came up to me and said, make me the vice chair of research or I'm leaving. I probably would have just given him the job. But, it helps to give me a couple years as chair to kind of help guide things. And even if it's not here, I've gotten people into other departments that have done really well. And, you stay friends and they come back and they give conferences. It's all good. Nobody doesn't know anybody any good to kind of keep people's indentured servitude in your departments. They should be out and spreading knowledge.
I think also being very honest about what's important, what's your priority. You know, I met with somebody here, not from my institution, and she's going over what she wants to do, and I said, I got to be honest, just let me know. Is working 5 shifts your priority, or is it what you want to do your priority? She's like, honestly, just making sure I don't work that many shifts is my priority. Well, that changes our discussion, right? And it really helps me figure out where we go. Is it, you know, that, and it broadens it, right? Because then we can talk about, well, maybe we drop your salary and you do other things, or, but just be honest about what your motivation is behind that, so people can be creative. I think that's more fun.
Yeah, I give 3 really quick examples. I think that Phil that answer that question. One is I worked with a toxicologist who really wanted to run a toxicology program. And I don't know why I have this concentration of toxicologists where I'm sort of really lucky in that way. But he was never going to be the chief toxicologist where I am, because there's a dude who does that and does it really well and is a great mentor and blah, blah. So, I mean, that was an early conversation. I want to be chief of toxicology, and I don't see that happening here. And so I just want you to know that I'm going to be looking for that opportunity. And that was crazy helpful. And so after a year or so, he found that job. And it was an expectation that that's what was going to happen. I had a residency program director who loved education, but got tired of the administrative stuff that comes with that. And so same sort of conversation, be on the lookout for things I can do that capitalize on my skills. And so over the course of time, she has now migrated, and she's the assistant dean for faculty development in medical school. And so she's still in the department, but she has this medical school thing, and she's like uber happy. And it made room for, it gave time to groom the next program director, and it made that possible. A lot of people like moved like up in their career trajectory because of that. But those were all conversations that happened sort of early in the game before anybody was a crisis. And the most recent one was just a couple weeks ago, where the guy who's like our clerkship director said, "This is great and I really love it, but what's next? Like what next for me?" And so we can start like thinking about those things. Way helpful to early on, before it's an ultimatum of a kind of a thing.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to know if you all think lots of things on saying to your chair, you know, I'd like to be X when I grow up, and that X job is like sort of, I mean,
The toxicology example.
I've been told, don't ever do that.
I don't think that's
Say,
true.
I'd like to be chair, for example. I'd like to be you, and you're you, so I got to.
Yeah.
I have lots of time going to my boss in various parts of my career and said, "I want your job." Not your job, like I don't want you to leave, but when you leave, I want to be. No, I think that's fair. I think that really helped, because again, I really think my job is to be, as much as is humanly possible, understanding of the people that work with me. And because I don't know how to lead them if I don't know what's motivating them. And to have those conversations, I think, is important. And so, no, I appreciate people saying, "No, I want to be a chair. Help me do that." And I think maybe I'm overly egotistical or whatever, but I think I've helped people do just that when I knew that was what their intention was.
I think there's nothing easier than when someone says, I want to be X, or I want to be you, or I want to be a program director, or I want to be a dean, or I want to be a CEO. It's much more straightforward. And it's also important that people believe that you're investing in getting them where they want to be, because then it's a different conversation when you ask something of them, and when you can have a completely transparent, open relationship about what it is that they want to be and what they have to do to get there. And then it's just out there and it's open.
That might be anything with my introduction with so much material.
Okay.
It's okay.
Faculty development, one is setting an environment where you have those annual meetings just throughout the calendar, and that's part of the discussion. So it's very natural to have those conversations, and I find helpful is involving the person's spouse. Like, I'm unhappy at home. Well, your ladies are rewarding. It's just frustrating asking your spouse. They have a really good sense of their community and listening to your connected work and hearing things that frustrate you and things that you love. And to really reflect on that, so lots of this in the back of the microphone, voice some questions.
So this has been a good discussion of our first scenario. Let's move on to another case study. All right, so what we got here.
All right, Dr. Y is an assistant professor. She works clinically 13 shifts per month in the ED. She leads 2 preclinical courses in the School of Medicine and directly mentors 3 residents and 2 fellows. Her department chair has requested that she lead the department's new QI program. Dr. Y feels that she has always been a good citizen and is willing to pitch in for the short term, but feels the chair's request is unreasonable and may potentially jeopardize her ability to pursue other creative interests. How does she not know how to communicate her concerns to her chair in a productive way so that a mutually agreeable solution could be found? What is your advice for Dr. Y?
Maybe I'll take a crack at this one.
You go for it.
So this is interesting. This is, again, a common scenario. You have somebody who's, doing a lot, like frankly, probably everybody in this audience is doing. They're doing a lot. She's working a lot clinically. She already has some mentoring roles, this sort of thing. And all of a sudden her chair says, I need you to do something different. So the first advice that I would have for Dr. Y is to spend a little time thinking about this rather than just having an initial reaction. And while this scenario sets it up almost like it's an adversarial relationship here, right? She wants this and her chair wants that. The reality is, the first thing I would ask is, well, why is my chair asking me to do this? Because your chair, frankly, their success depends on your success, and what we want is our faculty to be successful. So the first question is, why is the chair asking me to do this? Maybe it's actually an opportunity. Maybe the chair has an idea about how I can tie together my teaching with this quality role. Maybe it's going to set me up for some other position. But, like always, give the benefit of the doubt, wonder why that's happening, and maybe ask those questions. Sometimes, frankly, it's happening because it's just like your turn, right? I mean, there's just a certain amount of work that goes around a department that needs to be spread around to everybody. Now, what you'd love to do is align that with the person whose career goals will be enjoying doing it, will be very successful in doing it. Sometimes there's administrative tasks that are still kind of left over that everyone just kind of pitches in for, but it's really helpful to know that. So I think Dr. Y needs to try to understand why the chair is saying this is something that you want to do. And then the second part of thinking about it is really assessing, her own career goals. Is this something that I want to do? Is this something that's actually an opportunity for me? Versus, do I see this as a real barrier? Is this something that really is going to interfere with things I'd like to do? Before meeting with her chair, she's going to need to do a little bit of preparation work as well. So one is the thinking about it thing, right? Why am I being asked to do this? Does it fit with my career? And the other preparation I do is, it sounds like this person has a pretty full plate. I'd start quantifying that and putting it all down and making sure that it's all well organized before meeting with the chair. Because while we would all like to think we know everything about our faculty and know everything they're doing and every bit and nook and cranny of what they're doing, frankly, depending on the size of your department and depending on what's happening, you may not know what every single person is doing. And so it's nice to have it on paper so that they can actually go through that with the chair. The other reason that's nice to go through with the chair is not just to tell the chair what you're doing, but to be able to look at the whole package and say, life is about choices. Maybe we need to do some priorities here. Oftentimes I have folks come into me with a list of all the things they're doing, and they're giving, whatever. They're in a research track, but they're giving 20 lectures per year at the School of Medicine for which they get no protected time. Their career would do just as fine if they were giving 2 lectures, not 20 lectures per year, for example. So it's really helpful to go through those lists and try to pare down, what's beneficial and what's not beneficial. So again, I think I'll just start off with those opening comments. I know there's going to be a lot of discussion on this, and I have, some more thoughts as well. But I think it starts with that, being thoughtful about it, not making it an adversarial relationship, because it's not. The chair is there to support their faculty and make them have a successful career. It's always about balancing as a chair those, the needs of the individual faculty, the needs of the department as well, and looking for opportunities where those kind of Venn diagrams really overlap so they're well aligned. And maybe I'll just leave it at that as opening salvo to start off with the group. I'm sure there will be opinions on this one.
I think this is one of those scenarios where it's really important to understand how the other person thinks and what motivates them. So when you're in this position and you're going to meet with your chair, and we assume that everybody is well-intended, when there's work to be done, you tend to give it to the people who can do the work really well, not give it to the person who you think has the most free time, because that's the person that you're going to sort of allow to be happy somewhere else. So this is a reflection on the competency of the person, right? Something really important. We're approaching someone who's competent, and we think that, in this case, she has the skill set that could do this really important role. From the other side of the coin, everything is an opportunity. Everything that comes across your desk is an opportunity for a conversation and an opportunity for something else, and an opportunity to grow your career. And if you're transparent and honest, as Peter described, then you can have a conversation about the quantification of your workload, what makes you happy, and maybe what you don't do so that you can do this for the department. And then the chair should have a pretty elegant way of describing why it's important, not just for the department, but why it's important for you as an individual. But everything's an opportunity.
See, I mean, to me, this is a blessing, like, a little bit, right? Because now you've got a chair who wants you to come in the office and say, I want to elevate you. And even if you have no desire to go in that direction, you can take advantage of that, right? Because they just said, I believe in you. So, really it's about how to say no nicely, but get your interest in mind. The chair may say, look, I want you to do this because it has protected time and you're really busy. And I think this would help balance that. But it just starts a discussion of them wanting to do something because, like, you don't offer things to people that are awful, right? You just don't. You're like, that's the last thing you want. So you offer to people who are good. And it's that open door. It's an open door to discuss what you want to do. It's an open door to discuss your career goals. It's an open door to discuss all the stuff you do that you don't want to do. So, I mean, to me, it's just taking a run.
I just have one more comment, then I want to go down the line. It was that, sometimes it's about figuring out, well, what do you need to be successful in doing this? So if you're going to take it on, it's, rather than just saying, no, I can't do it, I don't want to do it, but what would you need? And it's worth thinking about, even again, before that meeting. How could I say yes to this? Like, how could I make this successful? How could this be a good opportunity for me? Maybe you just need a little more support on this thing, or you need a little more of that thing, but, think about it in those terms.
I guess, unless you have something, Ted, I thought see if there's questions or comments in the audience on this one. Yeah.
And another excellent presentation from a different group of chairs during earlier this week.
What? There's another group of chairs?
And it was an excellent presentation. It was great. Better than
Were there
ours.
more people
Better
there?
than ours? Were there more than ours? We had. Well, just for the people who are listening on the recording, we have about, how many are in the
400.
room? 400. Yeah, 400. That's right, 400. That's right. Not going to be better than ours.
So, in this other thing, there was some mention of the idea of going to a chair, which I also tried and said, I'm not sure what I want to be when I grow up, but I want to be something big and awesome, and I'll do whatever you want. And I've said that to a few people who sort of looked at me like, that's crazy. What do you mean you don't know what you want to be? And I've heard several people say, you need to go in and say, I want to be a chair, or I want to be a vice chair of research, or I want to be X. But I've heard a bunch of other people say, no, if you're not really sure, you can just go in and be like, I want to change the world, but I'm not sure what I'm going to be good at, and can you help direct me? I know in my career level, I can look at my junior faculty people and be like, you're going to be excellent at this, and you shouldn't go that way, because that's not going to be good for you. So I'm curious to know if you guys have any thoughts or feelings on that.
I have people tell me all the time. I mean, so I got to explain a little bit about how I do things, I think. So I make sure that at least once a year I sit down with every single faculty member for at least an hour. And I tell them, like, that's their time. And we can talk about anything they want, about their dog, their car, their house, their spouse, their vacation. I don't care. I'm hoping that part of that is, like, what they want to do and how I can find doors for them to open. But I routinely, in those series of meetings, there are, a dozen people who will tell me, I want to be doing something different, but I don't know what that different is. Or I want to be doing something, or how can I be more valuable, or, whatever. And they don't know. And so that's my opportunity. So I got this list of stuff I need to get done, right? And so that's my opportunity to probe them and find out, like, what inspires them, what they like. And they often don't know at all. Like, they may not have a clue. Well, I haven't had the chance to be a super duper educator outside of, like, the clinical setting, or I haven't had a chance to do administrative kinds of things. And so I have this list that I can go through it. And so and it comes down sometimes to saying, well, I need this done. Are you interested in doing it? And they might try it for a while and then decide, no, that wasn't it. But I got a little bit of what I needed done, hopefully. Anyway, the point is, some people know where they want to go, right? And there are a lot of other people who, like, just, they're not so sure. And I think that's okay. And from a chair's perspective, like, I don't value one more than the other. I mean, the one that knows where they're going to go, I can be pretty sure, generally, that if you give them stuff in that vein, man, they got it. I mean, they want to do that stuff. And for this stuff, I got this list of stuff I got to get done. And if I got people who don't know, that's a bonus for me. I can sprinkle some of that stuff around. And they get to experiment and find out what they want to do. It's not unlike being a medical student and doing different rotations until you find out where you want to be. Anyway, so I don't think, if somebody was telling you, or somebody conveys the message like it's bogus not to know and that's a problem, yeah, I don't see it that way. I think that's just hunky-dory. And it's my job to help you, the faculty member, decide those things.
I'd like to piggyback onto that too, though. It's, you come and say, I'd like to do something, but I don't know what. And then you said something very important, is that if we give you something, don't say no at that point, right? Because I've had faculty members that come in and say, I want to do something. And they give them 2 or 3 tries, and they keep saying no. And I'm like, well, I'm going to move on to the next person. You clearly don't know what you want, and you won't take my advice. And it may not be something dramatic, or it might not be something, that seems very high profile, but it's a very important stepping stone to get to that next job.
I think sometimes experiencing opportunities make you know what things you like and don't like, And there's nothing wrong with changing things around. I mean, everybody up here has had a bunch of different roles in their career, and have all made changes. So I think sometimes it really is about, obviously taking an educated guess, a well-thought-out guess about what things you want to pursue, and then being open to the fact of, and being self-reflective of, I really am enjoying this, or I'm not, or this is the part I really enjoy about it, and this is the part I don't. So how can I find a job where, there's more of that part that I'm enjoying and less of that part that I'm not enjoying? And but yeah, I think Rich made the comment earlier about it's easy when somebody comes in and says, this is the one I roll, because then you're not having to get through that process. That means the person has already identified what their interests are, where they want to be, and in that respect, it makes the target a little bit easier. But I don't know. From my experience, most people don't really have that. I mean, most people, it's a path, and it's a learning part of a career to figure out where you really want to end up, and then it changes. So,
What's your approach to the faculty member who says, I want to be X, and you're thinking in your head, ooh, that's really not a good fit? How do I redirect that person?
I'm very fond of saying that no one leaves my office wondering what I'm thinking. So, it's a conversation. I can be wrong, and I'm often wrong, but it's a conversation. So if you come to me and you say, I've always wanted to be an academic chair, and your entire career has been in one mission area, I would explore with you how comfortable you are experiencing other mission areas, because you're going to have to be responsible for everything. It turns out to be mostly HR and finance, but everything. So that's how I would explore it. And sometimes it's just misguided, right? There are folks who really their goal is to work 5 shifts a month, and to be the thing they want is an 80-hour-a-week commitment. So it's just really one of being candid. But from the other perspective, I'm not sure what I want to be when I grow up comment, that's also pretty easy too, because they actually do know what they want to grow up, right? Because everybody wants to be an academic physician, or they wouldn't be in an academic department being an academic physician. And then it's a question of, you pick this highway, and then over time, you're going to pick some lanes, and then eventually you'll have a lane. And it's knowing how to do that and having the resources and the panoply of experiences for people.
Yeah, I was going to say, I worry about those that just say, right out, they're a resident or whatever, and say, I want to be in a chair. It's a little concerning to me, because it's like, well, why? And I worry that they're going to work so hard for that and then be disappointed or just, not enjoy the ride along the way. And so I'd much rather have someone just maybe not have that particular goal, but passionate about what they're doing along the way. If they end up being a chair, fine, but because that's how I stumbled into this, so that's why I totally dismiss these folks that say, you must know, you have to be, you want to be a chair now. That's just not true.
I think there's different types of people out there, right? There are those that firmly know exactly what they want to do the minute they were born, right, and have that career path that they're going that way. And then there's others that just, you don't know, and you kind of, like you say, you stumble into things. You're like, oh, I'll try this. That's probably more my path. I think the key is uncertainty isn't a weakness, and it actually may be a huge strength, because you're at least being honest with yourself, right? You really don't know. And so don't be afraid to kind of say, I don't know, because like we all work with that, right? That is how you get places in life. Because when you say, I don't know, their job's to help you, right? People want it.
So I think to your question, about, so if I interpret that right, so somebody is asking me, wants opportunities on a particular trajectory, and I think that's all wrong, like they're just not cut out for that. I guess when I haven't had that happen to me much, but when I have, then I can start thinking about what sorts of experiences or successes do they have to have that are smaller bites, and I try to present those opportunities. And then, because if I'm right, they're not going to do well at that stuff. I mean, it's either not going to go well, and if it's a small bite, it wasn't a big tragedy, or they'll realize, not for me, after all. And if I'm wrong, well, then they do well. And then you just give them the next small bite. And eventually you're proven wrong, and they prove that, they find for themselves that it's exactly, they were reassured, validated, whatever, and it goes well. And so that's the tricky part. So if somebody said, the residency program director job is open, and somebody says, I would be great at that, and you say, that is never going to work out. I mean, they are a tyrant, residents will revolt, blah, blah, whatever thing. So you try to give them little small pieces to prove that they either can do it, and you were wrong, or they can't, and they learn that fast.
There was another hand over here, question, but I maybe decided, okay.
There you go. Yeah.
You brought up here, which really good point that I just wanted to ask about, and actually it was an issue in my shop. So is it helpful when someone comes to list to you of all the things that they do, and it's going to happen in two ways? One is they want to think that I need to be aware of everything they do, or I'm curious if you're already aware of that, and that's you're on board. And the other situation I have is I have people who don't do the execute their responsibilities well, and then when I ask them why, they give me this whole laundry list of all the things that are going on in their life. And that's in a different situation, that maybe we're supposed to be conference lost yesterday because it's hearing, which didn't show, this is all, why, I'm curious if bringing that list is helpful in terms of, do you need to be aware of all the things you're trying to do in detail? And also, how do you deal with it?
I'm going to ask you for advice. So I just had that experience, right? And these things I do. So a faculty member comes in and says, last year I was here and I said I was working too much, and so you said go help with medical education because there was that pays, there was salary offset, things like that. So they turned down her clinical time and gave her. So she said, now I'm working harder than I was last year. Because I think what people often don't understand is the trade-off from clinical stuff to other stuff. The other stuff is more time-consuming. It's just different, right? That sort of got lost in her, because the year before the conversation was all about her clinical stuff. And by the way, I got this list of stuff I'm doing. Well, I was aware of all that stuff, but that was all stuff that she had taken on herself. Like, there was not an assignment. It was just things that she wanted to do. And to her, personally, all that stuff had value, and she thought she was doing important things, and so she wanted some advice. And my immediate advice, this is the part where you can help me, my immediate advice was, well, you're doing too much. I mean, like, and so I was trying to be all counseling, and said, so what is it that motivates you? What of all that stuff do you like the most? And let's trim away some of the stuff that's extra that isn't like your core thing. Well, she saw that as I didn't value all the stuff she was doing, and there were tears and things and stuff, and it was terrible powwow. Didn't go well at all. And so, but that's the danger of a list. The list is good if you think that somebody doesn't know what all is being involved, but you got to be ready that the list could get pared down, and what it's how you manage the list.
It's all in the delivery.
Yes.
Right? It's just all in the delivery. If someone comes to me with a list of 400 things and says, look what I'm doing, I'm too busy, that's not going to go well. If someone comes and says, I just want to talk about what I'm doing, and I just made this list to prompt conversation, and I just want to make sure that you know what I'm doing and that you think it's valuable and it's important for the department, that's a very different conversation, even though it's the same list. It's just all in the delivery and all in the what it is that you're asking for. The other is from faculty perspective, you have to understand what we're responsible for. At the end of the day, we're responsible to a dean or to a CEO or both, and we have to have a certain amount of work that gets done, a certain amount of money that gets spent in the right way, and we have to cover the clinical environment, we have to teach residents and medical students, and we have to make sure that we're doing research, and we get judged on a lot of different things. So understanding how your boss gets judged is really important. It's incredibly important, because if you do something for me that helps me in some of the areas that I'm getting judged on, I'm most assuredly going to figure out a way for you to get what you want and be what you want.
Yeah, and just going to echo a little. It's been said, but it is in the delivery and what the motivation is with the list. I actually do find it helpful, but because it's usually a conversation around, let's look at what you're doing. When people are saying, here's my list and I'm too busy, if it's now go solve it, that's a different thing, versus let's look at this together and can you give me some advice and where should we go? Then it's a very different conversation. And those are from a faculty development perspective, those are exactly the sort of conversations we should be having, is look at all the things. If you're feeling overwhelmed and there's a lot on your plate, let's put it out there. Let's take a look at it. Let's figure out what things, A, you're enjoying versus not enjoying, and B, what you're really helping advance your career needs, and also the work that there's a body of work that the department needs as well, right? And which of those, you need to do because we need you to do this, right? But I mean, invariably, I find that when people are feeling really, really busy, it is oftentimes the self-inflicted wound, because that's our nature. We're incredibly motivated. Faculty are incredibly motivated. They're incredibly talented. They get opportunities. They want to grab them. It's exciting. You want to do everything. It's hard to figure out how you're going to do that. And then they're oftentimes, obviously busy in other things. We have families that we need to, balance with as well. And so I think it's really important, frankly, for all of us, and probably including chairs, to look at sometimes what things we're doing and say, where should we pair? Are these things still aligned with what I thought they were 6 months ago or a year ago? So it isn't the delivery of the list, but it's an opportunity to look at things. It shouldn't be a list of here's all the things, and it's your job to give me time and money to do every single one of these things. That conversation, just isn't a productive way to approach it. But
I think it's also hard to list to realize that what you think the chair should value may not be what the chair may not be as high on that chair's priority list, right? So,
Right.
faculty comes to you and says, I'm now the president of X. That's great. That does bring, kind of some prestige to the institution. But frankly, it probably doesn't bring enough prestige that I can give you protected time for it. Because that person then that's doing clin ops, that's where I've got to put that. Because that is actually what I'm most going to be, not judged, but most responsible for. And so some of that discussion may be a little bit eye-opening about what you think is so valuable to the department may not be your chair's top priority as they look at the entire thing they have to do.
So this person receives that list, how do I re-steer that conversation if it's approached in one direction?
Can we, I just want to give a couple other people, you had your hand up back here.
Sort of, because I hear what you guys are saying, and it sounds like these faculty have some sense of what's, they're signing up for things, or they're getting involved in things because they think they're going to be helping the department, or they think they're going to be helping the chair's mission, and they're not. That's sort of a mismatch there, at least in some of these things. So how do you recommend that junior faculty avoid that? Because you're right, we don't really understand, a lot of them, we don't understand their job.
I think the best conversations I've had is when people come and say, should I do this? And I'm very upfront with them. I said, if you want to go be, chief of staff, go for it, but I ain't giving you time for that. And they asked me first. And I'll be honest with them, I don't think it's going to help you get promoted. I don't think you're going to be happy doing it. Don't do it. And if they go ahead and do it, then it's on them.
yeah, I mean, I think the other thing I would just think about is that when it comes to this issue of protected time, which is what we're talking about, faculty can and should do things that they're interested in being involved in. And there are many things that faculty do that do advance the mission of the department, and hopefully also are advancing their own careers, too, at the same time, right? But that's a different question than, can your department chair now reduce the part that actually pays the bills? Can we actually take away the revenue stream by having you work less clinically to do that? Probably every department structures these things a little bit differently, but in every department, nobody's working, 60 hours a week clinically as a faculty member, right? They're working some amount clinically, and then built into that is some time for academic time. It varies by the institution, the expectations vary by the track you're on, so there's a lot of stuff that faculty do that kind of comes from that very first part. So someone really already has, quote, protected time, right? Because they're not working, 50 or 60 hours a week all clinically. The expectation, or I should just say from experience, to be a successful academic faculty member, you're probably going to work at least 50 or 60 hours a week, not clinically, but in total, right? Some of that's going to be clinical, some of that's going to be other stuff. So in that other stuff, there's the cushion to pursue all the other things that's kind of already given there. The conversation gets more complicated when it's around, but now I need to reduce that income to do some other things. And departments will support that for certain things, right? Administrative needs. You need someone to be your program director. You know, you have to have one. You know that they can't work at that same baseline shift level, so you have to put some investment into that. And the real challenge is just balancing the resources that are available as a chair, balancing equity of, you know, of support and opportunity among faculty, and matching that with the talents and interests and personal career needs of the individual. So it's not that because someone's giving a whole bunch of things, it really wasn't of value to the department. It's just a question of, is it something that the department chair can, beyond that initial support, reduce, find a revenue stream for, that sort of thing. I don't know if that.
Well, I think there is some. I think there's some that are valuable and some that are more valuable, right?
That's true, too.
So I have some, I have a lot of EMS guys, and they go out and do a bunch of stuff in the community, and they're like, I'm busy, I'm lecturing, you know, on Save the Bleed everywhere. And sometimes that's great, that is valuable. But what's probably more valuable is for me to lecture, than have them lecture to the medical students, because my dean cares about the medical students, right? So taking that time and putting it back into something that has a really probably more visible, you know, presence in the med school, which is who my boss is and who gives us money to do stuff, is probably more valuable. And so it really becomes, those are the good discussions to have, because it allows us to redirect people to kind of what meets everyone's mission.
We're almost out of time.
Yep. Oh, all right. Let's do our.
I don't think we can do the third.
Oh, you can. All right. Well.
But we did have one more question.
And
We
Yeah.
have 2 minutes, yeah.
Thanks. I'd be very, very curious to know what advice you all would give to those of us who don't know exactly what drives our chair, especially those of us who might not be in the chair, and don't feel quite comfortable going out and saying, hey, what's your story?
Get Rich to ask for you.
The faculty group about where is she going or where are we going here? What's the best way to find that out? Should I just ask them?
Well, I was going to say, it might be, if it's a new chair, for instance, you might have to give them time to get their feet on the ground and get a sense for the entire institution. That's a huge sort of undertaking, just to get acclimated, and they have to learn what the various bosses they have, like we said, what their priorities are, whether it's the CEO or dean. So it seems in that situation you might have to give them a little breathing space before kind of hitting them.
You want to look into the brain of a brand new chair. Be enthusiastically positive. At the worst, be neutral, and you're good.
Yeah, I would just point out that all of us have, I mean, we're not as confident and as sure as you think we are. I don't think there's a day goes by that I'm not questioning what I'm doing myself. So you might get a different answer on a different day. So just be aware for that.
Further comments? Okay. All right. Well, given that, on that note, just want to thank everybody for participating in the discussion. Everybody, from the panel to all of our outstanding.
I'm sorry about the
members.
people in the back. You didn't have room to sit.
That's right.
Yeah.
We'll see if we can get a bigger room for next year. So thanks so much.